Today I'm throwing the script out of the window because I haven't written it yet. So, let's get cracking. Have you ever suffered the shocking indignity of expecting a book to end really well and finding that, oh no, it didn't? I have. And I'm Ness Kingsley, and this is Of Words and Books.
Warning, bookworms can and will mispronounce words.
Now, I haven't read this book recently,
and that means that I could potentially, possibly get some facts wrong.
But it does sit in my memory as one of the books that I least like. Because the setup is great. It's all about a tomboy who proves herself, who becomes into her own, who is singled out by Lawrence Earl, the football hero. And no, it doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. I thought, oh my goodness, this girl, Effie Martin, is going to prove herself to everybody. She's going to show them how awesome and cool she is. And it's such a downer, honestly. The ending, I will never, ever forget it. It was building up to it. Lawrence Earl goes away after seeing tomboy Effie Martin and becoming friends with her. While he's away, she comes into her own. She becomes a proper lady. She becomes everything that she wished to be. And then he comes back home. And in what could have been the crowning moment of romance, where the two look at each other and sparks fly and they decide, let's get hitched. Instead of that, nothing happens. Nothing. There is no romance. And it's disappointing because Grace Livingston Hill is the queen of Christian romance. And to have such a bummer for the ending is just deflating. You know, when you build yourself up, you're really anticipating something, you're looking forward to it, to the crowning moment, it's the climax, and then the audience just packs up and goes home before they reach that final magnificent note.
I kind of meant orchestra.
And that is Found Treasure by Grace Livingston Hill for me. I enjoyed it until the ending, and then the ending was a downer. And also for another ending, which was slightly different, was not what I was expecting, is The Mark of the Horse Lord by Rosemary Sutcliff. Well, and this is spoilers, by the way, slapping on our big fat spoiler warning right there, because Rosemary Sutcliff, the heroes work hard for a somewhat moderately happy ending. It's realistic, it's not all riding off into the sunset with your love in your arms or, in your love's arms, etc. No, she never does quite that. But when the hero gets his happy ever after, in the middle of the story, you know something wrong is about to go down. And down he does go because he commits suicide at the end of the book, which I was not expecting. And it left me with just the last words of the page, close the book, look up and stare, because what just happened? The Mark of the Horse Lord basically is about a gladiator who he gets his freedom. He looks exactly, he's like the doppelganger of this horse lord or chieftain or whatever in Britain. I think it was Britain. And so he goes over, they hire him to impersonate the horse lord, his doppelganger. And it's just about how he fits into that life. He falls in love. He gets a happy ever after in the middle of the book, which is such a bad sign. And then at the very end, instead of,
and fair warning, this is going to be one of the most awful summaries you have ever heard in your life,
the Romans give him a choice. They say, look, you've got to give yourself up and get your tribe to give you men so that we can use them as auxiliaries or whatever they use men for. Slaves, I imagine. Or you can, we're going to keep you hostage. And so he's like, right, and throws himself off the wall, which was it was sad, but it was also quite shocking. And I have one more ending, which I will always loathe. Charlotte Brontë, who wrote Jane Eyre. I enjoyed Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. I think Jane Eyre is such a wonderful, marvellous book because the heroine, she stands by her principles. She doesn't give in. She doesn't say to Rochester, yes, we can live as brother and sister and you can kiss me only on the cheek in a house by the sea or wherever it is. Was it in France? And yes, I will give in to what your demands and give up my principles. No. She stays by her principles. And I was cheering her on. So I thought, Charlotte Brontë, she wrote Jane Eyre, she wrote this book called Villette, which is sort of, a similar sort of theme. A lonely governess goes, well, in this case, she's a teacher. She goes abroad, she might fall in love, and there could be a happy ever after. So I was so psyched. So I get that book. I dedicate 2 entire days to reading that book. It was over the weekend. And I remember I was sitting in the sun reading it on the table, which was slightly uncomfortable, but I had a straight back, so I was awfully proud of myself for that. And sitting in the lounge, sitting in my bedroom, just reading. It was the reading marathon to end all reading marathons until I did the Lunar Chronicles at Christmas time. But, oh gosh, I thought all the pain and misery and dreary depressiveness, which is not a word, but I just made it up, that is in this book would be worthwhile by the ending, and I was waiting for her to have her happy ever after with her dark little Frenchman. Charlotte Brontë, is evil for this one reason. She leaves an ambiguous ending that isn't really ambiguous, that actually points to the dark little Frenchman who we have spent an entire, 500 pages waiting for them to have a happy ever after and rooting through them for the dark, gloomy attics and all the forestly drugged state that she goes into at one point. We go through all that trauma and torment, and he dies at sea. The end. And they all lived unhappily ever after. I wasn't too impressed with that. In fact, I went downstairs and I completely lost it and raved at anybody who was unfortunate enough to be in my general vicinity because, oh my word, I had just dedicated 2 entire days to this book and it had just, it was like getting a muffin, a white chocolate muffin, and biting into it and finding out that it was clay. You just thought that the white chocolate muffin was white chocolate, and was it not? No, it wasn't. Villette was not Jane Eyre. And I'm not going to lie, it was a bummer. So, I freestyled without a script, and I don't think I did too badly, though I may have offended anybody who really, really loves Charlotte Bronte's Villette. In which case, you have my sincere apologies. I'm sure one day, maybe, potentially, probably not, but in the future I may reread Villette and truly appreciate it for the reason why it is a classic, but at the moment I'm afraid I really don't. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.